Hello friends, welcome back to my studio. Hope you're well. I have had a lovely rich week this week. The absolute highlight of the week was seeing Frida Kahlo's work. I was first introduced to her back at uni many years ago, and I've wanted to see her work in real life for so long. And I finally got the chance because Bendigo has a big exhibition of mostly artifacts from her home, clothing, photography, some jewelry and things like that. So there were a few pieces, but not as much actual paintings as I would have liked. It was a beautiful exhibition. If you can get to Bendigo, it's definitely a must-see. I think a lot of us, Frida Kahlo's image has become quite the commodity. You can get it on any printed material now, and it's a little bit of a shame in a way, but I think it speaks to the connection of her story and her struggles and her pain, and how we sympathize, empathize, and often connect with that. And you know, that's really the secret of being a successful artist, is putting yourself in your work. It's always harder to do than it appears. And, you know, really pouring your heart out into the work, and the people connect to it. And Frida Kahlo is the absolute epitome of that type of thing. An exhibition of her paintings did travel to Australia, maybe back in the 90s, I'm not sure, and I was desperate to see the work, so I travelled all the way down to Melbourne, so hour 15 minutes, went to the gallery in the middle of the city, and it was actually closed for renovation, so then I had to get on a tram and travel up a few blocks to where the temporary gallery was being housed. Went up to buy my ticket for the Frida Kahlo exhibition, and they said it's not on in Melbourne, it's on in Canberra. So I'd mistakenly read, because the National Gallery in Victoria is NGV and the one in Canberra is NGA, and I had totally, I was so embarrassed, I was so disappointed. I had dragged my partner along with me the whole way, going, this is so exciting, I'm going to get to see Frida Kahlo's work, and yeah, it was an absolute fizzer of a day. So of course, as soon as it opened in Bendigo, I was desperate to get there. And I must say, when I ended up getting this print of her work, and the painting is just about this size, and I'm not going to lie, I cried in front of it. Tearing up now. Like, when you have connection to work and to an artist, it's everything. And when you can stand in front of their work, I think because she was married to Diego Rivera, I think she was seen as a bit of a joke in the art world. She certainly had a terrible time in Paris. And she was, you know, often women are just the wife, and they dabble. It's a hobby, the art is a hobby and not a true career. And I think a lot of her work can seem simple, but standing in front of the piece, my God, that woman could paint. Not only did she have a tragic, painful life, and in fact her last words were meant to be, I hope I don't come back. But gee, she could absolutely paint. So yeah, absolute highlight of the week. So do get there if you can get to Bendigo. It's well worth a visit. So in terms of my own art, I've been just really splashing around with paint this week, more experimenting. Perhaps I shouldn't say experimenting, I should say exploring. And yeah, I'll show you some footage of that in a moment. But first, let me just show you a few snippets of the Frida Kahlo exhibition. absolutely beautiful. Bendigo do such a great job, and they were able to keep it, even though it spanned across several rooms, it still felt quite intimate. So yeah, amazing, amazing. Now let's get into some footage of what I've got up to this week in my own studio. I decided to really thin down the paint. I put some more of the gloss glazing liquid in and some water to make a real wash. I wanted to really play with that wispy veil feel and the thin washes, and yeah, seeing if I can get that kind of atmospheric glow happening with the thinner paint. So yeah, not really using paint brushes at all. In fact, on this first one I realised I had way too much paint down for the paper. So I do play around a little bit with the paintbrush, but then I come back in with this wedge. What I'm using is a catalyst wedge. It's a clay making tool, and it's Catalyst W06. It's lovely because it's shaped to be held in your hand really well, so it's very comfortable to use all day. Of course, you don't need one. You can use a credit card, an old credit card, or other baking bowl scraper things, but I find this catalyst wedge just sits so comfortably in the hand. It's what I prefer to use, and with different pressure you can see that I'm able to take the paint away or lay it in thick, so it's very versatile. What I noticed straight away was, of course, how the paper was really resisting the paint, or it was sitting on the surface, not necessarily resisting, but it was sitting on the surface, so it wasn't being absorbed. So I had a lot more paint than I needed each time. And I'm just basically playing around with different colors, and I ended up thinning the paint down further, and also trying it then, because I wasn't quite happy how it was moving on the paper, I went back to the canvas, and I hadn't prepped this canvas, so this is just raw canvas, and you can see how it's repelling. But it's being absorbed as well once I use the catalyst wedge. So it felt nicer to move the paint around on the canvas, I must admit. So I think the paper will be for paintbrush, and the canvas is likely to be for the catalyst wedge, and for that blending. Back to the paper just to see with the thinner paint what it might do, and I'm happier. I'm getting some different marks, and yeah, enjoying myself more with the paint thin, and that's why it's really good to just not have any attachment to outcome and just have a go and watch what happens. Really just be in the exploration and watching what happens. And I'm back here now with the canvas, and again, not prepped, it's just raw, and oh, I'm loving these, how this paint is going down and how it's being absorbed. I I tend to be very quick. I like to paint quick. It's what drew me away from painting initially and to photography, because the photography could happen very, very quickly. It happened in the lens, and there wasn't too much to do in the dark room because it all happened in the camera, and it was very instant, and I loved it. And as I've come back to painting, I notice I'm trying to be, or I am just naturally being very, very quick, which I think is why the acrylics work for me as a medium over other things. But I'm noticing, particularly as I'm editing, things I'm painting over in the rush that I would normally leave. So it's really important. This part of this practice, this exploration I'm doing, is to try and slow down and really watch and see what appears, really being able to see things before I'm just rushing ahead and painting over. And it's definitely making me slow down because these layers are taking a long time to dry. The gloss glazing liquid does really slow the drying time down. So if you like working fast, be wary of that. And if you like to blend, then that's a lovely go-to, because it does give you a lot of time at the paint stage. It's quite a warm day today, and I had to use the dryer to dry things off to go on to the next layer. I mentioned that I wanted to play around with mark making, and I don't tend to have a lot of texture. I don't like texture in my work, but I was wondering whether I added some marble dust, and so that's what I'm doing here, is adding the calcite marble dust, which again you just get from an art supply store. It's a very, very fine, almost like a talc powder, and I wondered whether it would help build the body of the paint enough to give me some texture. And yeah, it hasn't really done that. I'm not quite sure. I think I probably need something coarser. There are, of course, you can add coffee granules and sand into things. I'm not going to go down that track though, because yeah, again, I don't really like texture, so I'm happy not to. I've tried it. I guess I could add a lot more marble dust, but yeah, I'm happy to move on from that. So again, not everything that you try is going to follow on and continue in your practice, and that's what all of this time for me is about, is finding out what am I going to invite in and what am I going to leave behind. And this last one, I'm putting some of the GAC, the 100, the GAC 100. I read after I did last week's video that not only is GAC 100 a extender of the paint, so it thins it out, extends it, it's also great for sealing. So there you go. I accidentally used it for its purpose. So you can seal surfaces with it before you paint. So what I thought I'd do is seal the surface of this one with the GAC 100 to just see about what will the paint then do, what will a thin wash do over the top of that. And I'm being very general, just splashing it on. I'm not worried about brush strokes or covering the whole surface, because again, I'm wanting to see if I've missed a bit, what does the paint do there. And what I noticed was the brush strokes gave this lovely texture. It was a real surprise, but I guess the paint is so thin that it is able to sit in the grooves of those brush marks. So yeah, really lovely surprise. And now I know if I want to create texture, because I don't really like thick, chunky texture, it's a lovely way, it's a subtle texture, a subtle way, and it's not very 3D on the surface. So that's a really great learning in that. And I played around with that wispy veil type of thing, semi sort of landscape, and the paint is so thin, the wash there's barely any wash there. Quite nice, but I'd probably need to layer that up. It's there in places more than others. I really liked this texture that appeared in this corner particularly. So that's why it's really good to record yourself as well, so you can remember what you've done or take very good notes. So here's this, in the video was shot this way, but this is the stuff on the raw canvas, and it's lovely. It's got, yeah, it's going to be hard to paint over that, because there's some really beautiful things happening in that. And I love this blue one as well. It's really like water. And yeah, playing around with different mark making that doesn't have to be line work. Yeah, really nice. I can see me really moving onto canvas quite quickly. And then this last one with the 2 layers, I'll show you up full. And you can see the red and pink poking out through there. There's some, yeah, really, really lovely things happening in that one. This one is still very, very wet. You can see the paint pooling. So it'll be interesting to see how that dries and what that does. But there's that texture that the brushwork from the GAC 100 showed, and I decided to do this kind of monochrome, and I think in the 2 blues, and I think that's working really, really well. And I just pulled back this area. I swiped that up to keep that more clear, to just have the single layer, because I thought that could be a really lovely suggestion of mountain or hill and sky, but trying not to too much get into composition and end results. So there's the Catalyst wedge, and that's what I'm talking about, how it's got this thin 2 edges and then this thicker edge that just really sits in the palm of your hand. Really, really lovely. And yeah, that's what I got up to this week. And the process of this washing, glazing and waiting for it to dry, I can see it's going to be hard to, I'm going to fall in love with bits and it's going to be really hard to do layers over the top. But I really want to push almost to, you know, overworking, overpainting something so I can really find where I want to land. And from this week I can see I'm really attracted now to canvas after I painted all those papers up ready to go. And that's fine, they'll be used, absolutely they'll be used. So I hope you found this very inspiring and interesting. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely week and I shall see you next week. Bye.